The time for silence is over.
Last night, the FBI and Michigan State Police arrested 6 individuals charged in a federal complaint with conspiring to kidnap the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer.
The FBI thwarted a militia plot to kidnap the governor of Michigan.
On top of the 6 arrested, the state charged 7 other individuals that are part of militias. And so this was a plot where you had a group of individuals, the 6 people, as you mentioned, 5 of whom are from Michigan, 1 from Delaware, who tried to put together a plot to kidnap the governor.
You got to get your governor to open up your state, okay? Lock them all up.
Uncovered elaborate plans to endanger the lives of law enforcement officers, government officials, and the broader public.
The Democrats would terminate our recovery with a draconian, unscientific lockdown like your governor is doing right now for everybody except for her husband.
That a group of individuals was discussing the violent overthrow of certain government and law enforcement components.
Yes, they said she was threatened, and she blamed me. She blamed me. Don't take responsibility. Don't take responsibility. Don't take responsibility at all.
Join me every Sunday afternoon for a new show for common citizens, you and I together discuss with each other issues of today, where we demand proof and evidence is required, where we seek the truth and will not be silent. Join me this coming Sunday afternoon and take part in America's oldest and most honored tradition. Good afternoon and welcome to The Left Speaks. My name is Chris and today we'll be discussing the plot or the attempted coup to kidnap the governor of Michigan, as well as Trump's rally about 2 weeks later, not even, I think it was about 9 or 10 days, and his response to how it was handled. Obviously, Trump has a problem with white nationalists, white supremacists, and violence overall from the fringes of conservative politics. He's had issues condemning white nationalists in the past. This has been an ongoing problem. And then ultimately it came to a head. Thankfully, the FBI and local law enforcement in the state of Michigan were on top of things and managed to stop this before it ultimately took off. However, I do not see how any reasonable person can expect a president showing up 9-10 days later and instead of condemning violence, leading the crowd in chants of lock her up, referring to the Michigan governor, as trying to calm the situation, as condemning violence. This goes back to Trump's repeated problem of saying 2 or 3 or 4 different things so he can be quite literally everything to anybody. on the one hand, he can praise the FBI. Hey, y'all did a great job. And on the other hand, when his reporter or his supporters start chanting, lock her up. Lock her up. Yeah, we should lock them all up. So if you're a normal law-abiding citizen, conservative, liberal, doesn't matter, you hear his praise for the FBI. If you're a fringe conservative, radical, right-wing, regressive member, and want to overthrow the government, you hear, lock them all up. How hard is it to unequivocally denounce white nationalism? How hard is it to stop those chants when the woman in question, the governor of Michigan, just had, literally, less than 10 days ago, 13 members, 13 citizens of America who were plotting to kidnap her? 13 of your supporters. Well, I can't say 13. We know for a fact several of them were, and several of them took place in the armed protests to reopen the state shortly after the coronavirus restrictions began. This is not difficult. This is the most basic thing we would expect from a president. Calm the violence. And there used to be Republican candidates like this. Remember during the Republican town hall when John McCain was running for president? And he took the microphone away from the lady who said that she was scared that Obama was a Kenyan socialist Muslim sent to overthrow and take over our country. And he took the mic back from her. Literally. Ma'am, that's not true. We disagree on politics and fundamental things about what's best for this country, but he's a good man. How hard is that? Chris, do you condemn white nationalists, white supremacists, KKK members, neo-Nazis, anybody who advocates for the violent overthrow of the United States government? Why, yes, I do. So difficult. How come I can do it and how come you can do it, but this president cannot? The people who say Donald Trump is not my president, well, if he's advocating for me to be locked up, I can understand where they're coming from. Especially if he's advocating for me to be locked up quite literally after there was a plot by armed domestic terrorists, to use the FBI's definition of it, to kidnap me and lock me up. Maybe, just maybe, this isn't the best time to be leading those kinds of chants. Maybe, just maybe, 10 days, 9 days after someone tried to kidnap the governor of the state you're in, just maybe, you shouldn't joke about those kinds of things. When I was a conservative, I was better than this. The conservatives I know were better than this. And yet there are still people that want to support this man. You want to know why the political divide is as bad in this country as it is right now? Go look at that rally. I haven't seen any Antifa plots, even though they're not an organization and you can't point to a leader, but I haven't seen any Antifa plots to kidnap Donald Trump. When that plot's exposed, I don't see Joe Biden going on television and holding a rally for thousands of people that support him, chanting "lock Trump up." They might call for an FBI investigation, which I think is completely warranted. But that's what we have the FBI for, to conduct those investigations. That's what we have police for, to find the evidence, arrest somebody, bring them to trial, let them have their day in court, and then, and only then, if they're found guilty, do they go to jail and end up locked up. You don't get to stand by and incite and encourage mob violence and then wonder why the mob reacts. You don't get to stand by, strike the match, see that the ground is covered in gasoline and it's a dangerous situation, and wonder why it catches fire. This is not that difficult. This is the most basic thing we would expect from a president of all Americans. I don't care if it's your political opponent. You don't get to incite mob violence against them. I don't care if it's somebody you have a disagreement with. You don't get to incite mob violence against them. I don't care if it's somebody that we know is a criminal and the evidence is in the public sphere, all over the media. The Constitution of this country guarantees you and the people you don't like the right to a trial, not the right to be lynched by a mob or kidnapped by a patriot group. One of the first amendments to the Constitution, part of the Bill of Rights, guarantees you and me and the people I disagree with and the people you disagree with the right to a public trial. And I'm pretty sure that when the founders specified the right to a public trial, they didn't mean mob violence. That's not a trial. Might be in public, but it's not a trial. Now, there are clips, like I said earlier, of Donald Trump out there thanking the FBI for doing what they're doing and for finding this. But if I went on national television, let's say for a second I was a governor in the South during segregation, when they were trying to integrate the schools and black citizens of this country were being lynched left and right for fighting for their civil rights. And I thank the police for solving some of these crimes, while at the same time saying we should tie them all up, we should string them all up. Do you not see the problem here? Do you not see the fact that the message being inconsistent and that if I thought it was a good idea to lynch civil rights protesters, that the president coming out with that kind of message might be saying the wrong thing to me? That just maybe we shouldn't advocate for mob violence and mob justice in quotes, obviously, against duly elected officials of the United States government. This is how you end up with kidnappings. This is how you end up with coups. This is how you end up with assassinations. This is a problem. But we should lock them all up. Not, what those citizens did was wrong. This is a job for the FBI. This governor is violating her citizens' rights, and I'm going to have the FBI investigate her. But all of y'all outside of this room, in this state, in this speech, across the entire country, you do not need to try and take justice into your own hands. This is what we have the FBI for. This is what you have police and local law officials for, law enforcement officials for. This is not the time or the place to be trying to take justice into your own hands. This is not the time or the place to be trying to kidnap government officials. We're a civilized nation, and this is what we pay law enforcement for. And no supporter of mine, not one, would try to kill or kidnap a publicly elected official. It took me 30 seconds to craft that message, guys. I don't have a team of speechwriters out back. Literally off the top of my head. I don't have a communications secretary. I don't have 5 speechwriters. I don't have a director of my campaign. How come I can do it and this president, this joke, can't? I've said it before and I will say it again. I used to be a conservative. I am fine with disagreeing with conservative friends on matters of policy and how we think the government should proceed. I serve this country. I think we're the greatest nation in the world. But this is not that. And the conservatives I know that I'm close with, they're voting against this. They're voting against the endorsement of violence against state officials. This is not normal conservatism. There's a message here that goes against everything the founders of this nation fought for. There's a message here that goes against everything the founders of this nation intended when they set up our government. You have a right to disagree with the government. You have a right to disagree with the president. You have a right to voice that opinion. None of those things are crimes. And if you commit crimes, as we covered earlier, you have the right to a public trial. That right doesn't go away when you get elected governor. And you don't get to advocate or encourage or incite the violation of those rights just because you got elected president. This is why being unable to condemn white nationalist groups, neo-fascist groups, neo-Nazis, KKK, Proud Boys, anybody that advocates for violence is a problem. Your average conservative, which you probably are, you're not going to go do this, and I don't think you are. And I'm not saying this is your problem in the sense that I think you're going to go try and take over the state of California or take over the state of Ohio or Michigan. The problem is you're voting for a guy that's talking to those people and telling them that it's okay and joking about their actions instead of condemning them. And you're better than this. Why isn't the leader of your party better than this? Nobody is saying, or at least I'm not saying, that if you vote against this, that you have to become a Democrat, a socialist, a communist, advocate for the overthrow of the government. They're saying vote against the people advocating for the overthrow of the government. Vote against the people that are making jokes about government officials, elected government officials of the United States being kidnapped. In 4 years, if y'all want to find a normal conservative, somebody who respects the United States, respects our Constitution, wants to get the debt under control, nobody's telling you you can't go vote for that person just because you voted against this. Those are all policies that you and I can agree or disagree on. But don't normalize. Do not make it normal and acceptable for whoever's in office once they become the president to be okay with kidnapping, to make jokes about political violence, to be unable to consistently condemn white nationalism and political violence? Because then the rights that you and I have to agree or disagree, those start to go away really fast. There are things that I am still quite conservative on, although I can see the arguments from both sides for both positions. It is extremely sad and depressing to me that to be a conservative right now and support this president, I would have to be okay with going to the state where the governor had a plot against her to kidnap her. I would have to be okay with going there less than 2 weeks later, joking about that, and lock her up and kidnapping are kind of the same thing. Especially when you don't specify, we need the FBI to investigate her, and they're going to lock her up if they find evidence of wrongdoing. If you love this country, like I do, even the people you disagree with have the right to put their message out in public, and even the people you disagree with have the right to vote for that person, and even the people you disagree with have the right to hold office. You don't get to kidnap them. You want to know how I know this? Because I haven't agreed with Donald Trump since he got the nomination for the Republican candidacy. Me and none of my friends and nobody I know and nobody I stand next to, and nobody I vote for, is pooling money together to buy weapons and tactical gear and plotting to kidnap anybody. Me and all the people I know and all the people I vote for and all the people I support aren't joking about it either. And the most damning part, that was true when I was a conservative too. My position didn't change. When did this become acceptable? If you're voting for Donald Trump, if you're supporting Donald Trump, when did it become acceptable for you? Democracy can't function and will not function if you're just going to lock up everybody you disagree with. Look at all the great dictatorships across the world. Russia has elections. The leader of Russia, Vladimir Putin, locks up all the people that disagree with him. Surprise, surprise, he's won re-election consistently for I don't know how many years now. Communist Party in China. They lock up the people that disagree with them. The Nazi Party in Germany had elections too. They locked up the people that disagreed with them and then started killing them. The King of England, back when we were the 13 colonies, locked up the patriots in this country who disagreed with him. Which is why it's in the Constitution that you don't get to do that. My values have not changed. Some of my positions on some of the issues, as I've dug deeper into them and tried to learn more about them, have changed, which is why I'm no longer a conservative. But that's a debate you and I can have all day. But my values, my love for this country, and for what it stands for, those haven't changed. I find myself firmly in line with the founders of this country. And Republicans and Democrats both used to at least honor that most basic constitutional right. And now, I wasn't the one who changed. The Democrats weren't the ones who changed. Oh, but they tried to impeach Trump. Legally. And they did impeach him. And when the House of Representatives for the United States, a body of elected government officials, found that there was enough evidence to impeach Trump and sent it over to the Senate, and the Senate didn't bother to look at any of the evidence and just held a vote and said no, nobody ran out and started holding rallies saying lock him up anyway. There wasn't a plot by 15 Democrats planning to kidnap the President of the United States. Joe Biden didn't go on national television and say, those 15 guys, it's a shame. Lock him up. Lock him up. You should lock them all up. That's not what happened. There's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And this has been a consistent problem of his. Consistent. How hard is it to consistently condemn violence in government? Now, this directly ties in to this show and its topic 2 episodes ago. So I'm going to play the intro for that really quick. The time for silence is over.
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups?
I came here to speak on behalf of Donald Trump.
Do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. You want to call them, what do you want to call them? Very fine people on both sides.
And for the white Christian people of this nation.
Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists and
Who would
right
you like me to condemn?
white supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by.
In 4th degree, you get arrested or in a serious violent fight for the cause.
Really?
Yes. I'm taking the low road. I'm punching them in the face.
So that.
I attacked a couple guys.
Very fine people on both sides.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
So I punched him in the face and I ripped his mask off. And then I punched him again.
President Trump retweeted a video showing a supporter making a racist statement.
White power! White power!
Very fine people on both sides.
Did Hitler do anything wrong? No!
Fuck him.
First precept of the true alt-right. Remember it. Gas the kites,
But how do you stop this? You can't.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists?
There's not.
Do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. Very fine people on both sides.
Join me every David, I see you're on hold. We'll take your call here in a minute. But I think that clearly illustrates, that short video, the problem of being unable or unwilling to consistently condemn political violence. There was a woman killed at the Unite the Right rally. The Unite the Right rally that was in part organized by Richard Spencer, the white nationalist leader. The leader of the Proud Boys, you know, that Trump told to stand back and stand by, excuse me, immediately before the FBI started making their arrests for this planned kidnapping of the Michigan governor. Plainly, in his own words, uncensored, advocates for political violence. A supporter in the panhandle of Texas at one of Trump's rallies. When Trump asked, "What can you do?" and a supporter yells out, "Shoot them," laughing and saying, "You can only say that in Texas. I can't say that up in Washington." That's not condemning political violence. These are not the conservative values I grew up with. the conservative values I grew up with. If you saw something that was wrong, you said something. If you wanted to be a leader, you led, even when it wasn't easy, even if it was your friends, or in this case, your supporters. My values haven't changed. I'm willing to bet the average conservative watching this show, your values haven't changed either. Why are you supporting somebody who does not share your values, that does not share basic American values, like removing violence from politics?
Hello?
Hello, David. This is Chris. You're live on the air.
Oh, hi. I think it's really disgusting what happened in Charlottesville, and I think Donald Trump has a large penis.
Oh, that's the best you've got? How mature? Do you have anything substantive to add to the conversation?
Yes, penis.
So I guess not. Okay. Live show, you're going to get a certain amount of trolls. But what can you do? The height of American political discourse right there. Here we are talking about the foundations of American government. And that's the best we can do. But you notice I'm not advocating for violence against David. I'm not grabbing 15 of my closest buddies and planning to kidnap him. If there were people in my chat that were saying that, I would have blocked them. And I'm not the president. We're better than this. As a nation, as a people, as Republicans or Democrats, you and I, we're better than this. As voters, we're better than this. And this is why, among many other reasons, but at the most basic level, this is why so many Republicans, prominent Republicans, have come out against Donald Trump. This is why you can go on YouTube or Facebook and look at average Republican voters who are voting against Trump. This is why you see so many people who regret as we've had previous callers call in and mention, their vote 4 years ago for Donald Trump. Republican voters against Trump is a project on YouTube where plenty of people who self-identify as Republicans and self-identify as conservatives can't stand behind this anymore. The Lincoln Project is another conservative source that is standing against this. Because democracy cannot function and will cease to function if we continue to advocate violence. If we continue to advocate violence and tolerate violence and send messages to those who are committing that violence that it's acceptable, our democracy will cease to function. Like I said, you don't have to agree with me on everything. In November, I'm just asking you to agree with me on this. To return this country to its minimum requirement to function as a democracy. If we cannot agree to disagree, without shooting people, without running people over with cars, without planning to kidnap elected officials that we disagree with, we won't be a democracy. It's that simple. And in November, when you vote, remember that. It's that simple. If you love this country, love our democracy, the same as I do, then this is one of the minimum requirements to keep this country functioning as a democracy. Because if the people we disagree with no longer have the right to voice that opinion, no longer have the right to seek office, no longer have the right to hold that office, if those rights go away, then I don't know what you'll call us anymore. But it won't be a democracy. The last thing I'm going to leave you with before I wrap up the show is this is not a both sides thing right now. I've already pointed out that you don't have two presidential candidates up there doing this. But this is from Business Insider. As I've mentioned before on the show, I try to look at arguments from both sides, evidence from both sides, I want the strongest opinions, arguments, and evidence on an issue that I can find. Business Insider is obviously not some socialist, communist, Democrat website, to use conservative lingo. Right-wing extremists, and this is before this year, or excuse me, before this month, from July, have killed 329 victims in the last 25 years. The supposed threat of Antifa hasn't killed anybody. Anti-fascists have been linked to 0 murders in the U.S. in 25 years. That's since 1994. This is the governor of Michigan's response to the plot that was foiled by the FBI against her. Just last week, the President of the United States stood before the American people and refused to condemn white supremacists and hate groups like the 2 Michigan militia groups. Stand back and stand by, he told them. Stand back and stand by. Hate groups heard the president's words not as a rebuke, but as a rallying cry, as a call to action. Stand back, stand by. None of those are the same as an order to stand down. When I was in the Army, if I had told my soldiers to stand back and stand by, every single one of them would have known I was not telling them to stand down. I was telling them to stand ready and not to act quite yet. Know what you're voting for in November.